Welcome. I am so glad you decided to spend some time today exploring a perspective that has quite literally changed the way millions of people look at their bank accounts, their jobs, and their futures. You're here because you want something more than just a paycheck. You want to understand the hidden rules of money that aren't taught in schools. You want to know why some people seem to struggle their entire lives despite having high-paying jobs, while others build lasting wealth with seemingly much less effort. The purpose of this book is to bridge that gap. It is a guide to shifting your mindset from that of an employee to that of an investor and owner. It challenges the traditional wisdom we've all been fed, the idea that getting a good education and finding a stable job is the only path to security. Instead, it introduces you to a completely different philosophy on wealth, based on the real-world experiences of two very different father figures. Throughout our time together, we're going to look at some of the most important ideas ever put to paper regarding personal finance. We will explore the fundamental difference between an asset and a liability, a distinction that sounds simple but is misunderstood by almost everyone. We will also dive into why your primary residence might not be the investment you think it is, and why financial literacy is actually the most valuable skill you can ever develop. Robert T. Kiyosaki presents these lessons through the lens of his own upbringing, contrasting the advice of his highly educated but financially struggling biological father with the wisdom of his best friend's father, a self-made multimillionaire. It is a story of two paths and two different ways of seeing the world. By the time we finish, you'll have a clearer understanding of how the rich make money work for them, rather than spending their lives working for money. It is about breaking free from the rat race and taking control of your financial destiny. Before we dive into the heart of the summary, if you find this information valuable, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more life-changing insights. The Path to Wealth, a deep dive into financial intelligence. In the world of money, most people are playing a game they don't fully understand. They follow a script written by generations past: go to school, get good grades, find a safe job, and save money. But as we see in the lessons of the book, that script is often a recipe for a lifetime of financial struggle. To truly understand wealth, we have to start with the most basic building block of financial intelligence: the fundamental difference between assets and liabilities. The most important rule in building wealth is knowing the difference between an asset and a liability. This sounds like basic accounting, but the book argues that most people are actually buying liabilities while they think they are buying assets. This confusion is the primary reason why so many people face financial hardship. An asset is defined very simply. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket, whether you are working or sleeping. An asset is generating cash flow for you. This could be a rental property, a stock that pays dividends, or a business that doesn't require your physical presence to operate. If it generates income, it is an asset. A liability, on the other hand, is something that takes money out of your pocket. This includes things like your car payment, credit card debt, and, most controversially, your personal residence. While a house is often called an asset by banks and real estate agents, the book points out that for most people, their home is a liability because it requires monthly payments for the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance, without providing any direct income. The reason this distinction is so important is that it dictates your cash flow. The poor and the middle class tend to spend their income on expenses and liabilities. They might get a raise at work, but they immediately use that extra money to buy a bigger house or a newer car, which increases their liabilities and their monthly expenses. This keeps them trapped in a cycle where they must work harder and harder just to stay afloat. The rich, however, focus their time and energy on building their asset column. They use their income to buy things that generate more income. Over time, the income from those assets grows large enough to cover all their expenses and even fund their lifestyle. At that point, they are no longer dependent on a paycheck. They have achieved true financial independence because their money is working for them, rather than the other way around. Understanding this simple flow of cash is the first step toward escaping the financial pressures that plague so many. Now we move to the next point, which builds on this understanding of assets and explains why the education we receive in school is often insufficient for achieving real-world financial success. The power of financial literacy. A common theme throughout the book is that it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much money you keep. We often hear stories of professional athletes or lottery winners who make millions of dollars only to end up broke a few years later. This happens because they have high financial income but low financial literacy. They don't know how to manage, protect, or grow the money they've earned. Financial literacy is the ability to read and understand numbers. It is the foundation of wealth. Without it, you are at the mercy of the economy, your employer, and the government. The book emphasizes that while schools are great at teaching professional skills, how to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, they almost completely ignore financial skills. We are taught how to work for money, but we are never taught how to manage it. This lack of education leads people to make decisions based on fear and greed. They fear being without money, so they work harder at jobs they may not even like. Then, when they get paid, greed or the desire for comfort leads them to buy things that provide temporary satisfaction but long-term debt. This is what the book calls the rat race. To develop financial literacy, one must understand four main areas: accounting, investing, understanding markets, and the law. Accounting is the ability to read financial statements, which allows you to see the strengths and weaknesses of any business or investment. Investing is the science of making money. Understanding markets involves knowing the laws of supply and demand and recognizing opportunities where others see risks. Finally, understanding the law, specifically tax advantages and the protection offered by corporations, is what allows the rich to keep more of what they earn. For example, a person with high financial literacy might look at a potential investment and see not just the price, but the tax implications and the potential for long-term cash flow. They aren't just looking for a hot tip. They're looking at the underlying numbers and the logic of the deal. By developing this skill, you move from being a passive observer of your finances to being an active director of your wealth. Now we move to the next point, where we explore how to apply this literacy by shifting focus away from your job and toward your own personal wealth building. Minding your own business. There is a significant difference between your profession and your business. Most people spend their lives minding someone else's business and making that person rich. Your profession is what you do for 40 hours a week to earn a paycheck. Your business, however, is what happens in your asset column. The book suggests that to become financially secure, you must mind your own business. This doesn't necessarily mean you have to quit your job tomorrow and start a massive company. It means you should keep your daytime job, but start focusing on acquiring assets rather than just bigger liabilities. For many, their net worth is tied entirely to their salary. If they lose their job, their business stops. But if you focus on building an asset column, buying stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate, or intellectual property, you are building a foundation that exists independently of your employment. This is your real business. This mindset shift is crucial because it changes your priorities. Instead of looking for a way to get a slightly higher salary so you can afford a better lifestyle, you start looking for ways to acquire more assets. You begin to see your income as a tool to purchase things that will eventually replace your need for a salary. As mentioned earlier, the goal is to have your assets produce enough income to cover your expenses. Once you reach that point, you are minding your own business full-time. You are no longer working for an employer or the government. You are working for yourself and your future. This approach requires discipline, as it often means delaying gratification, choosing to buy a rental property today instead of a luxury car. But the long-term payoff is the freedom to choose how you spend your time. Now we move to the next point, which examines the historical context of how wealth is taxed and how the rich use specific structures to protect their earnings. The history of taxes and the power of corporations. One of the most eye-opening lessons in the book involves the history of taxes and how they affect different classes of people. Originally, in England and America, there were no permanent taxes. Taxes were occasionally levied to fund wars. Eventually, a permanent income tax was introduced, and it was sold to the public as a way to punish the rich and redistribute wealth to the poor and middle class. However, the book explains that the reality turned out quite differently. Because the rich have high financial literacy, they found ways to protect their wealth, while the middle class ended up bearing the heaviest tax burden. The primary tool the rich use for this protection is the corporation. A corporation is not necessarily a giant building or a factory. It is simply a legal document that creates a legal body without a soul. It is a vehicle that allows the rich to limit their personal liability and, more importantly, to significantly reduce their taxes. The biggest secret of the rich is how the tax structure differs for an individual versus a corporation. An individual who works a job earns money, gets taxed, and then tries to live on what is left. A corporation, however, earns money, spends everything it can on legitimate business expenses, and is only taxed on what is left. This is one of the biggest legal loopholes used by the wealthy. By owning a corporation, a person can pay for many expenses, such as travel, board meetings, and even car costs, with pre-tax dollars. This means they are spending money before the government takes its cut. The middle class, by contrast, pays for their life with after-tax dollars. This difference in how money is handled results in a massive gap in wealth accumulation over time. Understanding the power of corporations is a key part of financial literacy. It's not about breaking the law. It's about understanding the rules of the game and using them to your advantage. By operating through a corporate structure, the rich are able to protect their assets from creditors and minimize the amount of money they lose to taxes, allowing their wealth to compound much faster. Now we move to the next point, focusing on the mindset required to see opportunities where others see problems and how the rich actually invent money. The rich invent money. In the real world, it is often not the smart who get ahead, but the bold. This section of the book focuses on the idea that the rich invent money. This doesn't mean they do anything illegal. It means they use their financial intelligence to create opportunities and see value where others see nothing. Most people wait for a good deal to come to them. They wait for the right time, the right market conditions, or the right job opening. The rich, however, realize that they can create their own luck. They use their knowledge of accounting, investing, and markets to piece together deals that didn't exist before. This often involves being a developer of opportunities. For example, instead of just buying a house and selling it, a financially literate person might see a way to rezone a piece of land, combine it with another property, and create a project that is worth much more than the sum of its parts. They are using their mind, their most powerful asset, to create wealth. The book argues that our minds are our greatest tool. If trained well, the mind can create enormous wealth in what seems like an instant. In the information age, wealth is increasingly based on ideas and information rather than just physical labor or land. However, many people are held back by fear and self-doubt. They are so afraid of losing money that they miss out on the chance to make it. They play it safe, and in doing so, they often lose the biggest opportunities. The rich learn to manage risk rather than avoid it. They understand that failure is part of the process of learning. To invent money, you have to be willing to experiment, to make mistakes, and to look at the world through a lens of possibility rather than scarcity. Now we move to the next point, which challenges the common advice of specializing in one field and instead suggests a broader approach to learning. Work to learn, don't work for money. One of the most counterintuitive pieces of advice in the book is that you should work to learn, not to earn. In our society, we are encouraged to specialize. We are told to become the best doctor, the best mechanic, or the best accountant possible. The idea is that the more specialized you are, the more you can charge for your services. The book takes a different view. It suggests that highly specialized people often become one skill away from great wealth. For example, a brilliant writer may struggle to sell books because they don't understand marketing. If that writer spent a year working in sales or advertising, even if it meant a lower salary, they would acquire the skill needed to turn their talent into a fortune. The rich tend to learn a little bit about a lot. They want to understand how different parts of a business work, how sales relates to production, how accounting relates to law, and how leadership affects the entire organization. By having a broad base of knowledge, they can manage specialists and see the big picture. This concept also applies to personal development. The book highlights communication skills, sales, and marketing as the most important skills for anyone who wants to be wealthy. If you can sell and you can communicate, you can handle almost any situation in business. The advice here is to look at a job not just for the paycheck it provides today, but for the skills it will teach you for tomorrow. If you are afraid of selling, you should find a job that requires you to sell. If you don't understand numbers, you should spend time in an accounting department. By constantly expanding your skill set, you make yourself more versatile and better equipped to recognize and seize financial opportunities. You are building human capital that will eventually fuel your asset column. Now we move to the next point, which addresses the psychological barriers that prevent even the most knowledgeable people from becoming wealthy. Overcoming the 5 main obstacles. Even with a high level of financial literacy, many people still fail to achieve financial independence. The book identifies 5 main reasons for this: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. Fear is the most common obstacle. Specifically, the fear of losing money. The difference between a rich person and a poor person isn't that the rich person has no fear. It's how they handle it. The rich use failure as a motivation to get smarter, while others let failure crush them. The book points out that everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Similarly, everyone wants to be rich, but everyone is terrified of the process of getting there, which involves risk and potential loss. Cynicism is another major hurdle. Cynics are the chicken littles of the financial world. They are always shouting that the sky is falling. They focus on why something won't work, which blinds them to why it will. A cynic will talk themselves out of a great investment because they are focused on the potential downsides rather than the overall logic. Laziness is often hidden behind being busy. People stay busy at work or with their families as a way to avoid the hard work of managing their finances or learning something new. It is a form of busyness that keeps them in the rat race. The cure for this is a little bit of greed, or rather, a healthy desire for a better life. You have to ask yourself, what's in it for me? To find the motivation to break out of your routine. Bad habits also play a role. Most people pay everyone else first, the landlord, the credit card company, the government, and then they pay themselves with whatever is left, which is usually nothing. The rich pay themselves first. By putting money into their asset column before they pay their bills, they create a healthy pressure to find more income to cover those bills. This discipline forces them to become more creative and financially savvy. Finally, arrogance is ego plus ignorance. Many people use arrogance to hide what they don't know. If you find you are ignorant of a subject, the best thing to do is find an expert or buy a book on the topic, rather than trying to bluster your way through it. Having explored the psychological barriers that keep many people in the rat race, it's time to look at the practical, internal steps required to awaken the financial genius that the book claims lives within all of us. This isn't just about technical knowledge. It is about developing a specific set of powers and habits that guide your daily decisions. The 10 steps to awaken your financial genius. The book outlines 10 specific steps as a process for developing these powers. These are not just tasks to complete, but a shift in how you interact with the world and your money. The first and perhaps most important step is finding a reason greater than reality, the power of spirit. Most people want to be rich, but when things get tough, they quit. To succeed, you need a deep why. This why is usually a combination of things you want and things you don't want. For example, you might want the freedom to travel and the ability to control your own time, while simultaneously not wanting to be an employee for 40 years or live in a constant state of financial stress. Without a strong emotional reason, the hard work of building wealth becomes too much to bear. The second step is the power of choice. We make choices every day with every dollar we have. We can choose to be rich, poor, or middle class. Most people choose to be poor by spending their money on things that don't last or by neglecting their financial education. Choosing to be rich means choosing to invest in your mind first. Your mind is your greatest asset, and the time and money you spend on seminars, books, and learning from others is the best investment you can ever make. Third, the book emphasizes the power of association, which is choosing your friends carefully. This doesn't mean you only befriend rich people, but rather that you are aware of how the people around you influence your thinking. The rich often talk about money, investments, and opportunities, while those struggling financially often treat money as a taboo or a source of fear. By associating with people who have the results you want, You begin to pick up their mindsets and strategies. Now we move to the next point, where we see how these internal powers transition into the specific habits of how you handle your business and your learning, mastering a formula and the discipline of self-control. Once you have your why and you've committed to learning, the book introduces the power of mastering a formula. Most people go to school and learn one formula, work for money. But to become wealthy, you must be able to learn new formulas for making money work for you. Whether it's a specific real estate strategy or a way of analyzing stocks, you must master the formula and then, crucially, move on to learn a new one. In a fast-changing world, the most important skill is not what you know, but how fast you can learn. This leads into the power of self-discipline, specifically the habit of paying yourself first. As mentioned earlier, this is the most difficult habit to master, but it is the most essential. If you cannot control your own impulses and your own cash flow, you cannot get rich. By paying yourself first, putting money into your asset column before anything else, you force yourself to be creative in how you pay your bills. This pressure is what grows your financial intelligence. If you pay your bills first and have nothing left, you never experience the squeeze that forces you to find new ways to earn. The book also highlights the power of good advice. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to save money on professional help. The rich are happy to pay their brokers, accountants, and lawyers well. A good professional will not only save you time, but will also make you more money than they cost. They are your eyes and ears in the market. Paying them well is an investment in your own success. Furthermore, we encounter the power of getting something for nothing. This is the concept of the Indian giver in investing. A sophisticated investor asks, "How fast do I get my money back?" They look for deals where they can recoup their initial investment while still keeping the asset. For example, if you buy a piece of real estate, use the cash flow to pay back your down payment, and then still own the building. You have created an asset for free. This focus on return on investment (ROI) is what separates the professional from the amateur. Now we move to the next point, which discusses how to manage the rewards of your labor and the importance of having role models. Focus and the power of myth. The eighth step in developing financial genius is the power of focus, particularly using assets to buy luxuries. Most people, when they want a new car or a vacation, go out and buy it on credit. They use a liability to fund a luxury, which keeps them in debt. The rich do the opposite. They use their desire for luxury as motivation to acquire more assets. If they want a Porsche, they don't buy the Porsche first. They buy a rental property or a business that generates enough cash flow to pay for the Porsche. This way, the luxury is a reward for building wealth rather than a cause of debt. The ninth step is the power of myth, which is about finding heroes. By following the examples of great investors or entrepreneurs, we make the process of getting rich seem easier. If they could do it, we can do it. Heroes provide us with a template for success and the inspiration to keep going when things get difficult. Finally, the book speaks of the power of giving. This is the principle of reciprocity. Give and you shall receive. If you want money, give money. If you want sales, help someone else sell. Many people make the mistake of waiting until they are rich to give, but the book argues that giving is actually one of the keys to becoming rich. It creates a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. Now we move to the next point, which brings all these concepts together into a practical to-do list for those ready to start their journey today. Practical steps for immediate action. For those who are overwhelmed by the theory, the book provides a raw, to-do list of actions you can take right now to begin shifting your financial reality. It's a call to move from passive learning to active participation. The first suggestion is to stop doing what you're doing. Take a break and assess what is working and what isn't in your financial life. If you keep doing the same thing, you will keep getting the same results. This requires honest self-reflection and the courage to stop habits that are leading you toward the rat race. Next, look for new ideas. Visit bookstores and find books on different subjects than the ones you usually read. Look for unique investment strategies or business models. The goal is to expand your horizons so you can see opportunities you were previously blind to. The book also encourages you to find someone who has done what you want to do. Take them to lunch, Ask them questions and learn from their mistakes and successes. Most people are willing to share their knowledge if they are asked respectfully. This is a shortcut to learning that can save you years of trial and error. Another practical step is to make lots of offers. In real estate or any kind of investing, the person who makes the most offers is usually the person who finds the best deals. Many people are afraid to make an offer because they are afraid of being rejected or, conversely, afraid that the offer might be accepted. But making offers is how you learn the market and how you find the hidden gems that others are missing. Furthermore, the book suggests walking, running, or driving a certain area for 10 minutes once a month. This is a way to look for change. In real estate, change is where the money is made. You look for a house that has been on the market a long time, or a commercial space that is suddenly vacant. By becoming an expert in a small geographic area, you become much more sensitive to the signs of a good deal. As mentioned earlier, the key is to be active. Wealth doesn't just happen, it is the result of consistent action based on financial intelligence. You must be willing to look in the right places, talk to the right people, and take the risks necessary to move forward. Now we move to the next point, which summarizes the core philosophy of why this journey is worth taking despite the challenges involved. The ultimate goal: financial freedom and choice. The ultimate message of the book is that financial freedom is not just about having a lot of money. It is about having the freedom to choose how you live your life. It is about moving from a place of have to a place of want to. Most people live in a state of financial dependency. They are dependent on their employer for a paycheck, dependent on the government for a pension, and dependent on the economy for the value of their savings. This dependency creates a subtle but constant underlying stress. It limits your choices and often forces you to compromise your values or your time. By building an asset column and developing your financial literacy, you are reclaiming your power. You are creating a life where your income is generated by your assets, not your labor. This doesn't mean you stop working. It means you only work on things that are meaningful to you. The book reminds us that we all have two great gifts: our mind and our time. It is up to us to do what we please with both. With each dollar that enters your hand, you have the power to decide your future. If you spend it on liabilities, you choose to stay in the middle class or become poor. If you invest it in your mind and your asset column, you are choosing wealth as your goal and your future. The journey to financial freedom is not always easy. It requires discipline, a willingness to learn, and the courage to go against the traditional wisdom of the crowd. But the reward, the ability to live life on your own terms, is worth every bit of effort. The lessons of the two fathers provide a roadmap, but you are the one who has to drive the car. As we reach the end of this journey through the lessons of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the core message that Robert T. Kiyosaki has shared with the world. At its heart, this isn't just a book about real estate or stocks. It's a book about the power of choice and the importance of self-education. We have seen how two different philosophies on money can lead to two vastly different lives, one marked by a struggle for security and the other by the achievement of freedom. The path to financial independence begins with the realization that your education did not end when you left school. In many ways, your real education began the moment you started taking responsibility for your own financial future. By learning the difference between assets and liabilities, understanding the power of corporations and taxes, and developing the discipline to pay yourself first, you are setting the foundation for a life that is no longer dictated by a monthly paycheck. Remember that wealth is built one decision at a time. Each time you choose to invest in your mind instead of a temporary luxury, or each time you choose to buy an asset instead of a liability, you are moving closer to the exit of the rat race. It requires a shift in perspective, viewing money not as something to be feared or hoarded, but as a tool that can be put to work for you. The most valuable assets we all possess are our time and our minds. How you choose to use them will determine your destiny. The world is full of opportunities, but they are only visible to those who have trained their eyes and minds to see them. It is never too late to start building your asset column, and never too early to begin teaching these principles to the next generation. Thank you for joining me in exploring these transformative ideas. You now have the roadmap. The next step is yours to take. By applying these lessons with consistency and courage, You can break the cycle of financial struggle and create a legacy of wealth and freedom for yourself and your family. The power to change your life is, and has always been, in your hands.